My name is Alan Forrest Smith. Not really sure what you would call me. I've been through so many different things in my life, but I was born in Scotland, Edinburgh, in 1963, into really what was a very, very poor family. By the year 1970, we'd moved to England, where my father had his first proper job, because he'd been a window cleaner up to that point. And my parents finally had some stability in their life as far as income goes. And of course I went to school in England, in Cheshire, and I walked out of school at the age of 15. I'd had enough. I didn't like school. In fact, I hated school. I had enough of school, didn't enjoy it at all. The first opportunity I had, I just didn't go back. So really, kind of my blessing and curse was I contracted hepatitis when I was 15. And I was ill long enough, really, not to go back for the next term, so I just didn't go back. So my first job was actually, well, I had lots of jobs because I started earning money when I was a very small child, really, from about the age of 10. I began repainting everybody's bikes on the estate where I lived, repainting rally choppers and all this kind of thing. But my first real job was when I left school at 15. I needed to make some money and my parents pushed me into work, which was good, and I became a landscape gardener of all things. I did that for 4 years because actually I wanted to be a hairdresser. From a very young age, maybe 13 or 14, I had started cutting all my friends' hair. And this was during the kind of the punk rock phase. So I was the one that was appointed or anointed to cut and colour everybody's hair. And that's what I did. Then in 1985, after a couple of hairdressing jobs, I got fired probably for the 5th or the 6th time. I kept getting fired from every job I had. And the truth is, I'm probably unemployable. I wanted to do my own thing, really. I always, from being quite young, being a little bit of a nonconformist. I don't like being told what to do. I like to do my own thing, and I like to lead my own way. Even when it's wrong, I still like to lead my own way. So by 1985, I was self-employed because I couldn't get a job and I had to make some money, because by 1986 I bought my first house, which was £14,500. By 1989 I had my first child on its way, and the same year I decided to open my very first brick and mortar business, which was of course a hairdressing salon. So from one hairdressing salon I went from one hairdressing salon, which actually nearly closed because I didn't know how to take the salon to the marketplace. I just expected people to come to me. From one hairdressing salon I opened my second hairdressing salon, and from my second hairdressing salon I opened my third hairdressing salon. And I had those salons, well, sold one of them, but I had those salons till 2003. From the mid-90s, people would actually walk into my salon and ask, Alan, who does the marketing for this business? Who does the signs outside? Who does the signs in the windows? And who is sending out the direct mail in an envelope to people's houses to remind them that they needed to have their haircut? Well, of course, I would say it was me. And they would say, but Alan, you're only a hairdresser. And the truth is, I never really saw myself as a hairdresser. I never really saw myself as a businessman. I always saw myself as someone who had to pay their bills. But I wanted to be good at what I was doing, and I wanted to be busy, and I wanted to be well paid as well. So I didn't really learn how to do marketing as such, but I learned how to bring people into the business. And we had an extremely successful set of hairdressing salons, to the point that clients would ask, who does this? So suddenly, although I was still a hairdresser, I was suddenly creating marketing pieces for clients also. Although I didn't know there were marketing pieces, I was just writing letters, writing ads. I was doing a haircut, running upstairs, and then creating an ad or something in my office, running downstairs doing another haircut. It was all this kind of thing going on. So by 2003, I was so busy with my kind of writing ads and that kind of stuff for clients, I decided to let all my hairdressing salons go and do something different. And I became a ad man, as it were. Ad man, stroke copywriter, stroke marketing consultant, and all this kind of thing. Paid me very, very well, to the point where I was put on planes. I was flown to Australia at least, 4 times to Australia. Went to Los Angeles, went to Switzerland, went to all these different places, Malaysia, Singapore. I can't actually remember the whole name of them, Latvia, and all these different places, and was sharing my expertise with clients, and sometimes speaking to audiences up to 5,000 at a time. So I suppose I had fallen into becoming a consultant at that point. And that consultancy led me into lots of different directions, working with lots of different clients in business. And my first book was then published in 2012. So I suppose you could say I was an author. And that was the very first time I'd written a book. And since then, written many books, including business books, book Deliberate Recreation, Happiness, some fiction called The Little Angel, and some other stuff also. And still writing lots of stuff today. So I've become an author as well as all these other different things. But around 2012, I also had this idea of, I don't know why, getting into films. When I write books or stories, I always imagine them as films. I'm not sure why. Probably because of my hairdressing days and creative style. I like to visualize things a little bit more. By 2020, I had the opportunity of making a film with a client. And the client asked, could I make this happen? And I said, yes, I can make it happen. I would love to make it happen. So by 2020, I was a filmmaker. And since I made a couple of small films, the first one was called The Other Front Line, the story of a community pharmacy during the pandemic. Made another film after that called The Mexican, again another short film, a biopic. And we have another film, a couple of films penned up and ready to make on the slate, as it were. So being through all these different transformations, different journeys in life, which for me are very exciting. I think they keep life alive rather than being fixed into this precept. I mean, I still meet people from the past and they'll say, oh, hi Al, how are you doing? Are you still a hairdresser? And like, even after 20 years hairdressing, I can hardly remember that part of my life, although it was what it was. Life has been an interesting journey, to be honest, and I've loved it. I suppose there's a couple of things I've learned in life, and I think most people should learn it. Not because I know the best way, but I just think these are lessons I've learned in life. I think one of the things I've learned in life is you have to be self-sustaining. What does that mean? You know, for example, if we're in business, we are taught to have a business. But actually, why don't we have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 businesses? It creates a multiple income stream so that you continually control. This is not for great wealth. This is so if one stream goes dry, the other stream is continually coming in. So I've learned in life to be self-sustaining on lots of levels. Look at different ways of readapting life. Don't be too fixed on doing one thing. I mean, the pandemic has created some interesting things. So you now have airline pilots who are now delivery drivers. Who would ever thought that an airline pilot would become a delivery driver? Who would ever thought that airlines would be selling sandwiches on street markets to keep their airlines alive? It's all about being adaptable. You know, another one thing I've learned in life is change. Change is coming. Why be too fixed on, I love my life so much that I don't want it to change? Well, life does change. Life will change for so many reasons that we cannot control, but we can control what's going on inside our house, our home, our life. So we have to be in a position where that we control as much of our life as possible, as often as possible, which means we have to be adaptable. If we are living a rich life and we lose everything, well, that's fine. We just have to adapt to be living a life that is rich in different ways. It may be rich in relationships. It may be rich in the environment. I watched a documentary of a man in just off the north of Australia, living on an island up there. And this guy is in his 80s. Long white beard, long white hair, wears nothing apart from shorts. This guy was a big time property guy in Australia. And he decided money made him so miserable that he decided his priority was to be happy. So he went to live on an island with no money, and he claims he has an extremely happy existence or life on the island. So, if we want to be happy, we have to adapt, whether it be in business, whether it be in life, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in our spiritual life, whether it be on the life that we live on a daily basis. We have to have adaptability. We have to make change and be willing to change, because change will sometimes come to us, and it may be change that we don't want. So we have to make sure that change happens in us. Change creates resistance. Resistance creates friction. Friction creates pain. So when change comes, we have to remove the resistance, which means remove the pain. So look, whatever we are doing in life, one thing I know is change is such a wonderful gift that we have to embrace change, and we have to make change happen for us. And that may mean learning a new skill. It may mean learning a different way to live our life. But ultimately, change comes to everyone. And we can make it as painful or as great as we want it to be. But change will always happen.